Since 2010, the MacBook Air has been Apple's lowest cost entry-level MacBook, and it was constantly recommended to entry-level users who only wanted to do the basics. But now, Apple has a cheaper $600 MacBook Neo that surprisingly fills that role quite well, which made me question if the MacBook Neo is for the entry-level user and the MacBook Pro is for Apple's most demanding users. Well, who exactly is the MacBook Air for? Well, I think the best way to gain insight into this isn't to compare the Air against the Neo or the current Pro computers. I mean, naturally, the M5 is going to be faster than the A18 Pro and the Neo, and the M5 Pro and the MacBook Pro is going to be faster than this M5 chip, and that's not really helpful to anyone watching this video. So I think the best way to evaluate the current Air is to actually go back and take a look at what was considered the peak level of performance in a MacBook when the first Pro and Max chips started rolling out. And I still have my original M1 Max MacBook Pro to compare it against to see just how far, or maybe just how little, the MacBook Air has evolved since then. I think it's important to note, thank you. Before we dig into these performance tests, just how differently designed these two MacBooks are. Because when you look at the MacBook Pro design, you expect it to have better performance even with an older generation like this one. The body is thicker, there's vents on the bottom, and dual fans inside of this laptop that help cool the chip. The Air, it's fanless, and boy, is it thin. I mean, just look at them side by side. Not to mention the price of this machine when it was released was triple what the MacBook Air currently costs. And I would also like to point out that this is the base model version of the MacBook Air, so anything you see in these tests is literally with the worst version of the M5 chip. And with the worst version of the M5 chip in the thin and lightweight body of the MacBook Air, that gives you, oh wow, a single core CPU score that is about 70% faster than it is on the M1 Max. And even with multi-core CPU performance, we are seeing a 30% improvement on the M5 MacBook Air. Like I noted before, the Air is passively cooled. It does not have any fans actively cooling it. So yes, these are shorter benchmarks. So for sustained performance, the Air might actually perform a little bit worse, but for short bursts, it is going to perform faster than the M1 Max. But again, we are comparing this against a Pro machine, so chances are you might be doing some sustained performance workload on a Pro machine. So let's load up a more intensive benchmark with Cinebench. And even without a fan, the Air starts off faster and it finishes faster than the M1 Max with about an 8% advantage in multi-core CPU performance. And you might be surprised to know, especially with the drama in the past about slow SSD performance on the base level MacBook Air, that the 512GB M5 version is right in line with the speeds of even the 4TB configuration of the M1 Max MacBook Pro, which even makes it just as fast as last year's M4 Pro MacBook Pros. I don't want to underscore this because this is the type of responsiveness that carries over to the type of tasks that people do most often on their computer. Like when it comes to perceived speed, this is where the M5 MacBook Air really wins out. It is going to feel snappier than the M1 Max MacBook Pro. I know, you're probably wondering who that cute dog is on my MacBook screen. This is Kiki, and I know it's hard to believe he's not a puppy, even though he still acts like one, and he's about to turn 11 years old. And I want to help keep him healthy, happy, and full of energy for as long as possible. So when I heard about the Farmer's Dog Fresh Dog Food subscription, that is fresh, gently cooked, human-grade food to help maintain nutrition for your dog, I figured this would be a better option than the ultra-processed kibble he's used to eating. So I took the Farmer's Dog quiz, told them all about my precious Papillon Kiki, and they made a personalized meal plan developed by staff board certified nutritionists just for him. A few days later, everything showed up at my door, pre-portioned and ready to go. Now, Kiki can have a bit of a sensitive stomach when trying new food, so I really like that they gave you clear instructions to ease into it gradually. But honestly, Kiki was ready for the adjustment. He was very excited for the Farmer's Dog Fresh Dog Food every day and gobbled it up. He was literally literally licking the bowl after every meal. I think that's a big upgrade. The farmer's dog is Greg approved, but more importantly, Kiki approved. So if you have a dog like I do, you can click the link in the description below to get 60% off the farmer's dog fresh dog food with free shipping. So thank you to the farmer's dog for keeping Kiki healthy and for sponsoring this video. Now, one of the more growing demands for modern day computers is how well they handle local AI tasks. Well, recent Apple Silicon chips have kind of focused on this with more powerful, dedicated neural engines that specifically can power through these types of AI workloads. And comparing it against the older M1 Max when it didn't have that focus, you can see there is a drastic improvement. You're getting a machine that could potentially be 4 times faster when dealing with AI workloads. That is pretty insane. All in the thinnest MacBook you can buy. But there's always a catch, isn't there? And you're right, even with the increased core power of the M5 chip, it only has 8 GPU cores in the base model, and that just cannot compete against the 32 cores of raw GPU horsepower in the M1 Max chip. And you're getting about half the performance on the M5 chip, even though the M1 Max is about 5 years older. Even the full 10-core version of the M5 chip cannot catch up to the original GPU power that is in the M1 Max. Even with a weaker GPU, I was kind of surprised when I loaded up Cyberpunk and saw that the M5 MacBook Air was still capable of playing the game on high settings with around 30 frames per second, making it more than playable on the MacBook Air. And sneaking in a short match of Mercenaries mode confirmed the suspicion with Resident Evil 4 Remake. I was delighted to see that I can achieve 60 frames per second of smooth gameplay all on a MacBook that I think most people would tell you gaming is impossible on. And while the M1 Max still got better frame rates in the Cyberpunk benchmark, one really interesting thing is that the M5 chip in the Air is capable of using ray tracing, while the M1 Max isn't. So that's not even an option on this older MacBook Pro. And while the Air didn't necessarily achieve a stable 30 FPS with ray tracing, and I wouldn't recommend putting it on those settings with Cyberpunk, it is kind of interesting to see that even though the GPU is technically weaker, there are GPU capabilities that the MacBook Air has that the MacBook Pro doesn't. Well, the M1 Max MacBook Pro, the current MacBook Pros do. But that's also true of the Max. It has capabilities that go beyond raw horsepower, even though it is an older chip. So one of those things that even 5 years later that the M5 does not have would be the 2 dedicated media engines that help with hardware accelerated H.264, HVEC, ProRes, ProRes RAW, and AV1 decoding. The M5 still only has one of those. Basically, that means they help a lot with video editing, especially with the export process. So when exporting a video, the M1 Max has an advantage. Although it's not double the advantage, it exported a 10-minute 4K clip about 1 minute faster than the Air, but still, they were both pretty fast in their video exporting capabilities. In fact, if you came from my M5 MacBook Pro video, that also only has one of those media engines. So when you export the same video file, you'll see that the MacBook Pro was only 10 seconds faster at the same video export compared to the Air. 10 seconds slower for half the price? I think a lot of people would be happy with that trade-off. And I think a lot of people would be happy with the trade-off of carrying a slimmer, lighter laptop that doesn't even have the capability of making a sound, as long as the laptop is powerful enough to handle their needs. In the past, that wasn't an option. You had to buy a Pro machine to get fast performance. But that just isn't true anymore. This MacBook Air, it's slimmer and lighter than the one that Steve Jobs pulled out of the envelope all those years ago, but it's nothing like that MacBook Air, and it's nothing like the last crop of Intel Macs. Listen, I am not telling you the MacBook Air can replace the MacBook Pro for everyone, and the MacBook Pro still has advantages for it that go beyond power, right? It has a better screen, better speakers, more ports, and yes, there's always going to be users at the edge of computing that always want or require more performance. But what I am telling you is that the MacBook Air is more powerful than its legacy implies. It is not the entry-level laptop you only buy to browse the web and check emails. It is a true powerhouse, outperforming the M1 Max MacBook Pro in so many areas. And that is a machine, I'll remind you, a lot of people still happily use for how fast it is, the M1 Max. But now, you can kind of get performance that goes beyond it in certain areas at 1/3 the cost. So after saying all that, where does that leave the Air? Who is this laptop for? Well, I actually think it's for two different types of users. First of all, even though I love the Neo and think it is deserving of the new entry-level spot, it still does miss out on premium features like a bigger, more color-accurate display, a haptic trackpad, a center stage camera, around 2 hours more of battery life, better speakers, the ability to connect 2 external monitors. So even if you watched my video and realized that maybe the MacBook Air performance-wise is beyond what you need, it could still be the correct choice for you if you value a premium experience with no missing features. But the second customer base, and I think this one is much more important and a much broader one now, is that this is the MacBook to buy if you are a power user. It's very strange to say that about a MacBook Air, but it's true. This is the machine that is more than capable enough for video editing, photo editing, coding, music production, and strangely enough, maybe even some gaming. In my eyes, it is the new starting point now for the pro level customer and not the starting point for basic users. And I would like to know, has anyone out there already ditched the Pro and replaced it with an Air? I would love to hear your experience on that, so let me know in the comments below. And yeah, I would love to hear if people agree with my take that the Air is just a lot more powerful than it used to be. But hopefully this video helped you out. If it did, leave me a like. If you want to see more, make sure you're subscribed. And thank you so much for watching. Hopefully I'll catch you in the next one.